Two of three members are in the room. Mr. Wright is joining us via WebEx. He can see us, we can see him, he can talk to us, and according to state dictates, that constitutes that we do have all three members present. So, excuse me, if you would stand with us, we would bow our heads, have a word of prayer. Pledge allegiance. Gracious God, our Heavenly Father, as we take these moments, we know that this past weekend, sadness and grief has entered our community. And for those who have lost loved ones, we ask that your grace will overwhelm them with peace and comfort as they deal with loss. And we pray, Father, that the rest of our community, going through many different things, will be protected and guided by your gracious and unerring hand. Give us wisdom as we continue to do the work of this county for the people. And we'll thank you for your leadership in all of our lives. For I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. First up, we have our current claims and payroll. And with regard to pre-approvals, we have invoice edit reports from October the 11th. General batch includes $59,715.63. Other batch includes $28,402.50. Highway batch, $54,004.77 for a grand total of $142,122.90. Along with that invoice edit pre-approvals, we have a single pre-approval on October the 7th, AT&T Mobility IT Department in the amount of $2,152.90. And that was pre-approved on the 7th as well. So we have those pre-approvals we need to review and ratify.
Okay, I make a motion that we ratify the claims that were given.
I will second via WebEx.
We have a second via WebEx. Any discussion on those pre-approvals? And satisfy state law because we do have WebEx involved. Jim, can you do a roll call vote for it, please?
Sure. Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
Bardsley.
Aye. That is unanimous, whether we're in the room or on WebEx. Thank you. Next, we have our claims for today. And general invoice batch is in the amount of $204,500.15. Other batch, $41,626.95. Highway Department, $34,371.93 for a grand total of $280,498.67. So this needs to have a regular motion to approve these payments.
Okay, just one clarification. Mark, on other, you read that as the cents as 95.
Did I get dyslexic on that?
Yeah, I caught that, Leah.
Okay, you have the other, and the other batch is $41,626.59.
Yes, correct.
Thanks, Mike. All right. Entertain a motion to pay those bills.
Motion to approve.
And second via WebEx.
A motion to approve, second via WebEx. We ready to vote?
Yes, Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
Aye via WebEx.
Mr. Bardsley.
Aye. It is carried. Thank you. And with regard to payroll 21, this was pre-approved on October the 11th, gross amount of $521,164.08. That was paid out on October the 14th. We would need a motion, or excuse me, a motion to ratify the pre-approval.
Motion to ratify the pre-approval for payroll number 21.
And second WebEx.
We have a motion with support. Any further discussion? Hearing none?
Okay, Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
Aye via WebEx.
and Mr. Bardsley.
Aye. It is carried. I think we've carried now for our pre-approvals, our claims, our payroll. We have a packet of minutes, but they aren't finished yet. We're still doing some editorial work on those. So we will go to the receiving of the monthly weights and measures report.
Okay, motion to receive.
We have a motion to receive weights and measures,
And second via WebEx.
second via WebEx, and it looks like that constitutes June 16 through July 15, July 16 through August 15, and August 16 through September 15. So that's a 3-month report. Mr. Reporter, if you'll call the roll call.
Sure. Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
Aye via WebEx.
and Mr. Bardsley.
Aye. We have received a weight and measures report for those 3 months. We're ready for communication and board updates. Anything from the auditor's office?
I believe nothing unusual this morning, so we'll pass to the next person.
Just a heads up before we rotate through, we are planning a State Board of Accounts exit interview next month.
November 3rd is the date at this point.
Very good.
I mean, I think it's 10 o'clock in the morning that day.
I believe that is.
But you're going up in the 6th floor, I think, so.
All righty. Other elected officials, boards, EMA directors.
Yeah,
Welcome back.
because I'd like to pass this off. Good morning. So a couple of things going on today. Give you a brief, quick update on the COVID situation. Today, we have 20,964 cases have been reported. Really, we continue to trend downward over the last couple of months, so that continues. Hospital, I did speak with them this morning. Their census is good there again. Normal, what they would expect to see this time of year with the flu and those kind of things is going on. There are some childhood situations going with CSB or RSV.
RSV,
Yes.
or BS or something. Yeah.
Way out of my realm, so but they're, right now, their census is good. They're able to treat everybody as they need to. A couple other things of concern we're watching this morning from the National Weather Service. We're on the fringe of some snowfall. It should stay out of our area, but we are right on the edge. And really the winds are our major concern. I looked at the drought monitor. It comes out every Thursday. So last Thursday's has us listed in what's called a D0 category, which is abnormally dry. So we looked at some other places in the state. I don't believe at this point there's any need for any burn restrictions. However, with anytime there's wind, we request and hope that people will use some extra caution whenever they're burning stuff. So it is very dry out there, and we really don't expect to see any meaningful precipitation in the next 7 to 10 days either. So if that changes, we'll certainly let the commissioners know if we need to do something. But at this point, I don't believe we do.
Okay.
Lastly, communications update. We're still waiting on the installation of a service door on the plant site to complete that. That has not been done yet. Had some conversation with Justin and the project manager on Friday. So we're still, it looks like a couple weeks out on that door being installed. So we're holding on that, continue to push, make sure that happens.
So do we continue to a test cycle? Or are we finished with that?
Testing is complete. Everything went really well. In fact, the VHF side of things is scheduled to launch December 1st. With that, though, we have determined the contractor that's doing that install, because we had to change some PL tones and some radio frequencies, all of the VHF radios in the county will need to be reprogrammed. That's mainly the fire service in Grant County that uses most of those VHF radios, but that is a substantial number of radios that need to be touched. So we're trying right now to coordinate. I actually have a meeting later this week with the J&K to try to make sure that is done smoothly and timely. That has to be done by December 1.
Bob, is that work from J&K included in their contract with us already, or is that outside of that?
That is outside of the scope of the VHF radios. We did not anticipate that happening, so we did speak, we met with fire chiefs last Thursday. Obviously, they're not happy about that. That's expense they did not see coming, so we're trying to work out some different things. It's about $50 per radio if J&K does it. They don't have to be the one, so we're trying to see who is out there can reprogram those and at what cost that might be. So we're continuing to work through
Seems
that.
like he's in Guatemala today.
Yes, yeah. He knows when to get out of the country.
Is J&K finished with their work on our towers at this point then, or so testing's done? Are they complete or?
Testing is complete, everything went well, but no, they still have some work to do in finishing that. The launching of the VHF and then also reprogramming 800 megahertz radios, which is in the scope of their work, and that was covered in the cost.
So we're not ready to receive the final invoice yet.
Correct.
I wondered about that when that'd be coming, so.
Correct. Lastly, we will be, my office, my staff and I will be in Indianapolis the rest of the week. We do have EMAI conference down there this week, so a lot of things, different things going on this year. We're hoping to pick up some extra education hours and continue on.
Be interesting to see what you come back with.
Yes, cybersecurity, as we mentioned the other day, has been on our radar for a long time. So Marcus and I will be hopefully looking at some different things that we can do in that regard.
Since you're standing up here, is it okay if we just jump to the old business about the fencing proposal? Is that all right with you?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
For the fencing, we did receive a quote initially. For that was $4,985. I believe the commissioners requested some changes, wanted and it makes good sense that we do that for aesthetic reasons, that we do a black vinyl fence. And what we requested is that they do not install barbed wire at this time. However, they do need to make provisions for that in the event that in the future they want to do that. So they're going to go ahead and install the taller corner posts that will be required for that. So then in the event that you want to add that later, it's an easy thing to do. But that new total came to $6,150 from $1,165 more.
Give us that final number again.
$6,150 for material and labor to install that fencing. And that is around the generator and the air conditioning units that currently are sitting out in the open over there.
And am I correct to say that this will not be installed until after the new asphalt layer?
Correct. We'll coordinate with the highway department. So once they've completed the paving over there, we'll install that. That way it's not in their way when they're trying to work.
So we have that new quote in front of us, gentlemen. And most of our other units like that are secured. We haven't done that because of the kind of the landscaping enhancement we were going to do around the parking lot. So I think it's time feel comfortable with this, we can move forward with it.
Okay. Make a motion to approve.
And I will second via WebEx.
Have a motion, Mr. Burton, second, Mr. Wright via WebEx to approve the Messler fencing proposal at $6,150, including the material and labor costs. Any other questions on that? Discussion?
Is it appropriate for repair building and structure? It would. I'm trying to think what other option I might suggest. We could talk about that too, but that's an option you can consider. You might want to just stop it. We can talk about that to make sure.
All right. I think we're ready for the roll call, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Burke,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
and Mr. Bardsley.
Aye. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. And anything else for us?
I think I'm good for today.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. We'll fall back to IT report. Is Marcus in the, yeah, Marcus is hiding.
Oh, I was directed, sorry. Good morning, gentlemen. All right, so I brought with me, three, different, projects, so I got you some quotes. I guess the first one we'll tackle would be the, EMS project. So I gave you gentlemen, it should have been included in your packets, three, different quotes. I think there's another one for another project in there, but, basically we, got quotes from, Rex Collins Electric, to help us finish up some of the cabling work out there and to help us install a, generator, because I know that was a need for the, morgue that's over there. So basically, for all the labor and the materials and all that stuff, for the Rex Collins quote, it was $18,838. The next quote I have for that project was from the DSN group. So this is for their IT upgrades, so that way we can get them set up with computers and devices out there. It's basically for 2 switches and a firewall and 5-year support on all those devices. And that amount was $22,379. And then the final piece was for the access control. Initially, we, I think when we looked at it last year, they were talking about 5 doors. And it turns out they only need 2 to be locked down. So Stanley sent us a quote for a controller that needs to be installed out there, and then for the setup for the 2 doors. Then Rex Collins would obviously, run the wiring and stuff to it, and they would just have to, Stanley would have to actually install it at that point. But for that entire project, for all 3 quotes altogether, it was $50,372. That project.
That is total.
Yes, that's total for all 3.
Good.
And the DSN group did say, with the chip shortage and stuff going on, some of these devices wouldn't come in right away. But I know since you gentlemen are wanting to pay for it out of this year's budget, he did say they can, take payment now. Then that way that locks it in. So that way we can pay for it this year, and then whenever we get them, we can install
Any idea how far down the road before they get them?
them. It's really random. We've just gotten a shipment and stuff for our data center stuff here the last couple weeks. So, it varies. I would say maybe it'd probably be next year if I was to guess. That's just me guessing.
Next year is, 2 or 14 or 16 months away. I mean, we talk.
Well, probably January, February range. That's just me guessing, but I could be It could be a lot longer, but it could be a lot shorter.
Yeah, I don't want to see us paying them 12 months in advance.
Right.
Something that we aren't going to get.
Right. But I know that was a concern that they wanted to pay for it out of this year's budget because they have funds for it.
What's the big rush about this year's budget on that?
That
We wanted to complete the.
Yeah, they wanted to complete the project.
And we don't want any jangling pieces if we don't have to.
I guess my thought would be if it's going to be, pretty quickly, it's no big deal, but if it's going to be a long wait, I guess my thought would be if you don't have it included in the next year's budget, you just go for an additional when you're ready to pay for it next year. But that's just my thought. You guys can hash that out. But I wouldn't pay them too much ahead of time.
Okay.
What we could do, if you are inclined, gentlemen, is to approve this, but to get a commitment on how quick. If they're gonna say 6 months out,
Mhm.
then I think we hold money. But if they say we can have it by January, or February, then it makes sense to go ahead and clean
Okay.
the house up there.
Yep, I can get that photo.
Okay.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I've been involved with Marcus and the team on this, and we've met with the judges, we've met with the sheriff's department. I mean, this is a very needed item for safety around the courthouse as well as the D-home area there. And I felt really good about the presentation that these guys gave. The equipment that they're installing is going to have a 360 degree around the courthouse, 360 degree around the juvenile detention center. I mean, and all this can be reclaimed if we do something in the future with any buildings. So, the only thing would be the install, but the equipment itself could be removed and put somewhere else. So I'm in full support of this. And again, working with the sheriff's department and the judges. You see, there's an alley leading down to a parking area that a lot of the times the jurors get out late and it's dark. And there's really not too much protection there other than what we can see. And right now we can't see anything. So I think for safety purposes and making sure we're keeping our jury safe, we're keeping our judges safe, as well as our officers safe in the as they go in through the metal detector there in the courtroom. This will really give us a little bit of a heads up if we see anything coming in.
I think that's a pretty good segue to his other quotes here.
That couldn't have been any better.
We'll have Marcus share with us real quick, and then we can talk about how we want to handle these things.
We, as Commissioner Wright said, we met with the Verkada and Demir from CIH. They're a company out of Indy, and they do a lot of the camera installs. And basically, we did a walkthrough with them and the sheriff's department, and they gave us a suggestion for basically for 9 cameras, along with the installation wiring for them. And that quote was for $34,132.94. The other thing that did happen was Captain Haley was out there, and he also thought of the D-home, because there's also a similar need out there as well. So we went over there and reviewed everything, and basically they gave us basically another quote that's separate. And the amount for that one is $20,268.82, which I don't know if I included that in your.
Yes.
Oh, you guys do have that one?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because there was one for the courthouse and then one for the juvenile center. So, as I mentioned before, the cost for the whole project, including the cameras and the work, was the $34,132.94. But if you wanted to do the D-home project as well, that was at $54,401.76. But that doesn't include any discounts, because once you start grouping the cameras up together, they include bulk discounting together. So it would come in a little bit cheaper.
So you're acting like one of those salesmen that says, I can bundle this for you and save you some money.
Yeah, just a little bit. I don't know if I'm that good though.
Initially, there was some concern with attaching anything to the courthouse.
Mhm.
Could you address that, please?
Yeah, so, I know we talked about solar and stuff, but they highly advised us not to go that route, because they said solar is, it's basically something you have if it's fairly isolated. You don't really have anything to hook onto. So what they recommended was, and Demir, he said he does this for a lot of other courthouses, where basically they use the ledges and they'll basically run the conduit in the back of the ledge, and they attach the cameras to the ledge, and they're able to paint the cameras as well, so they blend in better. So that was the recommendation that they had, because he said if you go the solar route, or if you were to go any other route, your cost is gonna jump up really high. Just because you're gonna have to be, doing digging and boring and all that stuff around the wires for poles, so.
You're referring to the ledge on the balcony, on the south side.
Yeah, so it's the ledge that goes all the way around. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, which I can show you. And basically, all of it would run into the second floor, which there's already access right there from when fiber optic was ran. Back in 2011, 2012, I think. So there's already a, entry and exit point right there, just for that.
So if we were to adopt both quotes on the courthouse, we're looking at $54,401.76.
Well, that includes the D-home cameras as well, but if it was just the courthouse, and it was the $34,132.94.
And if I could have the floor just one more time.
Yes, sir.
The reason that we went down to the D-home was to go ahead and see what that cost would be. And they did talk about a pretty good size discount. Don't know what that is, but I would be inclined to do both at the same time if we could, to save money in the long run. Both places needs it. We could go ahead and get a discount at this time. And again, as we all know, just prices keep on going up on everything. So that's my thought. Again, I think, Mr. President, we could go ahead and pass something like this with the understanding that they would come back and with that discounted rate for us. And then we could go ahead and decide at that time if we want to do both.
I think you've got a good line of thought. I'm to a degree surprised that we really didn't have anything on the D-home area, simply because we have sheriff's offices in there, we have probation in there, we have county records in there. And so I think that after many years of not having that to be observed and think about our security there, I think it's probably time that we take that step as well. So I kind of like Steve's recommendation that we approve pending what that discount is really going to look like.
Right.
Does anybody want to make that a motion?
I'll make that motion as presented by Steve.
Mr. Burton has made that a motion that we go with both offers, see what the discount is before we actually sign the paperwork. Is that acceptable to you, Steve?
Yes, yeah, I second that via WebEx.
Right? Any other discussion on the CIH, quotes?
Is this motion just with CIA?
Yeah, this is just CI, because that's a regular purchase versus we're still waiting on some crunch numbers. Hearing none, let's vote on that. For a roll call.
Mr. Burke,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
Mr. Bardsley.
Aye. Believe that carries. What we'll ask you to do is get that to us as quick as possible. We have approved this. If the numbers are good, then we can sign off on it and get it going.
Sure, yep, absolutely. Once I'm out, I'll. And then for the EMS portion, I know we kind of segued into the camera, project, so, I don't know what you gentlemen want me to do with that piece.
Marcus, I noticed in the packet, there's this paper in here from Electric Plus.
Yeah, that's,
That was not included in the total you gave.
no, that's separate. Yeah, that's not part of that project.
So the 3,500 is not a part of the,
No, the 3,500, that's for, I guess we can talk about that one now. That one is for, some work we need done for, our D home and for us in IT. The D home has been having, power issues, and one part of it is, there's a UPS, backup. And it's like in the, back in the juvenile detention part, one of those rooms, and the battery cabinet, it's about 4 or 5 years old. And on July 23rd, when we had that storm that went through, the power went out for a little bit, and when it came back up, basically it shot the battery cabinet on that UPS. So right now we have it running in bypass mode. So anytime there's like a power fluctuation over there, basically their stuff goes off on I think it's on the first floor.
so that unit is still servicing probation
Correct,
and community corrections.
correct, yes. Yeah, it's pretty much isolated down to on that ground floor when you first walk in. And then the second piece of that was also for our own GPS we've had for the last couple months. I've been kind of waiting for our data center project to pick up before we went with putting it in. So I had them get us a quote, and they went ahead and bundled it in with the battery cabinet work. So, and that would be installed up in our server room up on the 5th floor. So instead of having, right now we have like 2 or 3 UPSs in there. Basically, we're going to consolidate those to one big one. So that way that'll cut costs, and we're only paying support on one thing versus 2.
Okay, so I don't miss anything. We have 2 pieces of work that we are recommending for EMS building. One from Rex Collins in the amount of $18,838. The DSN group for again EMS building at
Yep.
$22,379.32. We also have the Electric Plus, which is for the detention center.
Right, well, the Electric Plus quote is separate. That's not part of the EMS project.
Right.
So it's standalone.
So we could do the first 2 and then come back and do the detention center after,
Right, yeah, I had it as last because it was,
okay.
yeah, it's only 3,500. So,
Mark, you have a third page. There's one.
Yeah,
Stanley.
Stanley.
yeah, the Stanley is your access control.
It's on the back. It's for 9,100.
Okay, I can see that. Thank you. So we have 2 for EMS and then 2 for the,
Yeah, so there should be 3 quotes for the EMS project, and that's Rex Collins Electric, the DSN group, and then Stanley Security, which that covers that project. And then, just the D home just has the 1 quote from Electric Plus.
Set it down, so got them all together.
They've got, it's not stapled together right.
All right. So thoughts on the EMS project, gentlemen?
I would say go with the full percentage.
Mr. Burton's recommending that we go with the quotes presented.
I'll second that via WebEx.
Is that okay to make
Yes.
that motion? All right. We have a motion with support to approve the EMS building quotes. Do I need to read them off again, or do you have those numbers? Okay. So that would be for Rex Collins, for BNS Group, and Stanley Security. Any other discussion? Mr. Otter, roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
and Mr. Barnsley.
Aye. We are unanimous, and we can go to, let's take a look at the Electric Plus item now. And again, you said that is for battery backup.
Yeah, it's basically to install a big battery cabinet for the UPS and the D home. Since the one that's currently in there, it basically died when the power got drained fully on that day. And I was told that it's pretty common when they get that old, they get ran to zero.
And I don't want to sound like a squeaky wheel repeating itself, but again, this, though we say D-home, it's servicing, community corrections and.
Yeah, so-
probation.
I'm not 100% sure, but I think the purpose of that UPS was to keep the doors and the IT stuff going for I think it was mainly for the juvenile detention center part. But there's probation and community corrections people on that same floor.
Okay. Questions, comments, statements on that, gentlemen?
Chair, ready for a motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we accept Electric Plus's quote for $3,500.
Second.
Motion, Mr. Wright, second, Mr. Burton. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
Mr. Barnsley.
Aye. It is carried. The longest you've been up here.
Yeah, I know. It's, like I said, I was saving it, so, hey, thanks so much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Marcus. Mr. White is in the building.
Good morning.
Sir.
Update you on a couple of projects. We did a big pipe installation out on County Road 800 South, just east of 1100 East last week. I got that completed. I think that's something you're working with the drainage board on, Mark, on a new maintenance project or something. So that's all been taken care of.
Say that's connected with the Hollis Dollar
Yeah.
ditch.
Yeah. So we've got that all installed, ready for whenever you get that drain cleaned out. Bridge 39 on County Road 1000 East, they're paving the approaches today and hopefully scheduled to do guardrail on Wednesday. So hopefully by the end of this week, that bridge will be open back up for public traffic, so. They're setting the trusses today on our new building out at the highway department, so that's moving along quite rapidly. And, a few weeks ago, I told you about one let Butler, Fairman, and Cypress to help me apply for federal aid project on Branson Street Bridge here in Marion. I had a quote of $2,500 to help me do everything from engineering on the scope of the work, construction cost, PE, and estimates on the project. So I'd like to make sure it's all right that I spend the $2,500 to help me apply for the federal aid project.
You have that in your budget?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shall we just by consent allow David to proceed on that? Is that all right?
Yes, for me. Yes, for me.
They're getting ready to start our second, or phase 1A of bridge inspection for the month of October. Those are the bridges that have to be inspected every 12 months instead of every 2 years. So that'll be starting. We're scheduled to pave the Central Dispatch and D Home parking lot October 31st, just to let you know on that. So we'll be prepping it next week. So,
You need vehicles removed for prep.
probably just at Central Dispatch. So, and I've talked to Kevin and Bobby both a little bit, so I told them I'd let them know when we get closer, so. Or I'll send you an email or something, so. The only other thing I had to bring up today is, I know that Mr. Persiner worked a little bit on the Boys and Girls Club on that building. And I guess I would say that I'm to the point where if you'd like to sign it off, I'm fine with it, or if you want to wait, and I know you was working on the tower project, if you want to do them together, or I don't know where you stand on that.
I think it was his recommendation that we, get them out of our inventory at the same time.
Okay.
So we probably just need to see where he thinks we are with regard to the tower before we go ahead and sign off.
Okay. I was gonna say, there's a few things, articles I need to get out of that building, but I guess when it gets closer, if you let me know, I can, within a week or two, get that removed, so
Well, you've only got trusses up to,
I'll be all right.
that's where you will put it, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I can get by long enough to get that, so they can start using that facility.
Okay.
I don't have anything else unless you gentlemen.
Any questions for our highway today, Steve?
Nope.
We did get the railroad crossings all done, and so that was a federal grant, if you remember right, Mark, that I think we got up to 50,000. I think the quote I just got was, or the bill was $48,300, so I'll be getting that paid for, and then I'll have to get reimbursed from the state, so, but that'll all be paid for, so.
Good.
Just let you know on that, so.
All right.
Okay.
I'll check with Kyle to see where we're at.
Thank you. All right, I think that covers it. Appreciate it, David. All right, we took care of our old business. We're going to move to the new business, and representative of Envoy, Dale Davis, is with us. Has some proposals of facility assessments and agreements.
Good morning. Like Commissioner Bartley said, I'm Dale Davis with Envoy. We've been brought in with the county here to be your trusted advisor as we look at conditions assessment for 5 of your county buildings here. So we have the jail, juvenile center, this building, the courthouse, and the former Salin Bank. So we wanted to take a conditions assessment of all these structures and see where they're at, what it would take to get them really up to current office standards, or in the case of the jail, current jail standards. This would be done through 2 studies. So the jail and the juvenile center would be done through a jail study that's regulated by Indiana code. That would be a completely separate study. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. What I'm talking about here is this building, the courthouse, and the former Salin Bank building. So we want to look at these and really just think forward. What's the stewardship look like for the next multiple decades? So we suggest partnering with Halstead Architects. They're local. I think most people here know them well. have a very good eye towards the historic preservation. They'll also bring in experts to help them with the MEP side of things. What they will do is, it's going to be a lot of man hours. They're going to look through each of these 3 buildings and see what it's going to take to get them back to 100%, put a cost with that. They're also going to look at, anytime you touch one of these older buildings, you also have to think about, well, what's ADA look like? So they're also going to look at that, what it's going to take to get these buildings up to where they need to be. Now, we have no idea what that report is going to tell us. They're going to look at short, medium, and long term in terms of, the needs. Because say they're looking at the boilers, they could say, these are in fine working order, but they're 5 years past their shelf life. So not saying you need to replace them today, but definitely something you need to earmark money for. So that's the way they're going to approach this, is really a comprehensive, just holistic view of these 3 buildings. And what is that top line number to get them to where you would want them to be? And once we come with that top line number, we can start talking about avenues for how to get them there, what other options we have available. It really depends what that final investment number would be. And it would be the same path of study for the jail and the juvenile center, but again, that would be separate path. So I'm happy to answer any questions with that. The contract that Alto provided was for $78,000 for that assessment, and it would take about 6 months to complete.
Appreciate the recommendation. I think that this is something that we've advocated for quite some time. And it's really hard to be reactive, basically running blind on your mechanicals, the different things that you have as part of your infrastructure. If you cannot have a knowledgeable assessment of how much life is left in our mechanicals and structure, what we need to do, again, we're reacting instead of being proactive. I think this allows us to be proactive and to get a good snapshot of really, this is what it takes to maintain us right now. This is what it can look like in 5, 10, 20 years out. So those are my thoughts. Gentlemen, what are you thinking, hearing, seeing?
I agree with you.
I would go ahead and echo your thoughts, Mr. Bardsley. To be proactive instead of reactive to situations, whether it's broken pipes or units getting ready to go out. We didn't know that. We didn't budget money towards it. I mean, if we had a little bit of an idea, whether that's 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the pike, if, they could give us a good assessment of the equipment that we have, it would allow us to do a little bit more budgeting, which I'm sure Mr. McWhort would be happy with, to go ahead and make sure that we have those provisions possibly in the budget if need be. And so I think this is much duly needed, that we really need to go ahead and be proactive instead of reactive to what we are coming up against. We have some older buildings, and we need to make sure that we're taking good care of them.
So just a clarification, in our discussions, Justin, we have a line item that we can draw on this.
The bulk of your funding is either in preventative maintenance or repair building structure. So permission to use one of those line items or pending a transfer. Yes, we do have the funds.
And it's very possible that we wouldn't see all of this drawn until next year anyway, but we do have it so that we could start paying down on this if we need to.
Yeah, I don't want to say yes or no to that. So we haven't discussed that, and I'm not aware of what the status of that, those line items are at this point. So Justin evidently has looked at that, and I'll let him respond to you on that. I'm not going to say yes or no without further discussion.
That's fine.
And we are already in October, so I wouldn't see a bill on this till November at the earliest. So as that draw kind of works out over the 6 months, yes, you'd only be seeing part of it this year. Now it's up to you, your guidance, if you want to encumber the money or move it, or how that works best for
He
you.
doesn't like to encumber those, we absolutely have to.
I understand, there's a lot of paperwork with that.
All right. Well, we have this agreement before us, the recommendation coming from Envoy that we utilize local architect Michael Halstead Architects for this phase of study. And entertain a motion if you're interested.
I'll make the motion to move ahead on this project.
I'll second it via WebEx.
Motion, Mr. Burton, second, Mr. Wright.
Let me just ask a question, I guess, just for clarification from my standpoint. And I guess I'll plead some ignorance. I'm not really sure, but you guys have had a conversation I'm probably not aware of, but we already have an agreement of some form with Envoy on some services. This is totally outside of that. Is that correct?
This is their recommendation on how we do the other buildings. They're helping us specifically with the jail certification study that's required. Is that correct? Am I saying that correctly?
We'll help shepherd you through both studies and provide our services. But the part of the scope to completely understand fully what's needed was to help the county procure additional consultants to help to provide that architecture and engineering. We're not an architectural and engineering firm. We're a planning and owners representative firm. We will be providing the cost estimates, though. They're different services.
I guess, as long as you guys are comfortable that the services you're paying for or contracting aren't the same, and that's up to you. I'm a little confused by the whole scenario, but as long as you guys are on board, that's your call. So.
Right. Other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
Mr. Bardsley.
Aye. It is carried, and we will get the proper signatures and go from there.
Need anything, please let me know. Thank you.
Oh, there'll always be questions. Thank you. All right. Next up, Linda Johnson, Guardian Advocates. We'll do some updating.
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hope you gentlemen are well, and I appreciate the time you want to pass it down to them. We were here last year to find that we typically do not support nonprofit organizations. And I understand that to a point. So I wanted to come back with that in mind and update you and leave you with some thoughts on the focus. Since, let me just back up just a minute and make sure that everyone remembers what we do. We are a nonprofit organization based out of Anderson, but cover not only Madison County, but Grant and Delaware County now this year as well. And bigger than that, we are now merging with our West sister program, which I'm actually director of, which brings along 5 more counties into the fold. So as of January 1st, we'll be an 8-county organization, all under the Indiana Supreme Court to serve adults, seniors, incapacitated adults who have no one to advocate or support for them, no one appropriate, I should say. We do get some exploitation cases that oftentimes involve family members that aren't appropriate any longer to be their guardian. We advocate, support, and protect these individuals. This is a program similar to CASA, developed on that base, if you will. Judge McVicker here in Grant County highly supports the program. However, unlike CASA, there are no funds in his program for us. He understands and supports the fact that set out by the Supreme Court in this program that we have to solicit local funding to match our Grant County, or pardon me, our Supreme Court grant. It's a 2-for-1 match. So we do this in support of the program, not in support of Judge McVicker. So there's clarification this year versus a confusion last year in the questions that you had. He understands that this is what we have to do. This is how it was directed and written and put into probate code as law. So that's our effort here. We have more than doubled the number that we are serving here in Grant County since last year. While they're still small numbers, it's huge in the effort that we're making, keeping people safe. We tomorrow go to court and we will have a total of 7 here in Grant County alone. We're rising in numbers in Madison and Delaware County, double that in each of those counties. And then we bring along the other 5 that we're serving, but we're asking and just reporting here for Grant alone, just so you understand that this is just not isolated to Grant County. It takes staff, it takes volunteers. So again, we ask that if you know of anyone interested in being the boots on the ground, visiting these clients, we would greatly appreciate that recommendation and referral. I would like to challenge you folks to think about how do you spend any mental health dollars that you might have. And I don't know if you're done with your American Rescue dollars or not, but in those funds, there was a nice slice set out in those for nonprofit organizations, I think to the tune of probably 200,000-300,000 per county. So I get it that you don't typically support nonprofit, but with that in mind, there is a place for we nonprofit, even though we're small. We fill gaps, we protect people, we take them out of deplorable living conditions. We take them and put them in proper care, in proper places, save you from a county home like you used to have years ago, probably to the tune of 50 or 60,000 easily per year. If it was at least in this day and age. So I respect what you guys do totally. I just ask for some advocacy there on your part, or some out of the box thinking, especially when you have funds come along like American Rescue funds, mental health funds. 98% of our clients have some form of mental health issues, whether it's as quote unquote simple as dementia, which is not simple, but or as complex and complicated as IDD and schizophrenia and all the other Heinz variety that comes along with that. We have an outstanding board of directors, a retired medical doctor, people from the mental health field, nurses. We are still looking for other funding avenues. So I just ask that you keep us in prayer and thought, and that you advocate for us if you can, and certainly pass along a volunteer need if you know of anyone that would like to do that. We are serving a great cause. You know, we often say it takes a village. We often say no children left behind. And as I drove in and up Adams Street and I saw on the fences the banners for CASA and the sad little child, we have that same sad little child inside the adults we take care of. And I ask that you leave no adult behind. So please give it some consideration.
In your studies, Linda, any of the adults population that you're serving right now, do you know if there is any data on opioid use?
We don't singly use that as a metric in what we reply or respond on our quarterly reports to the Supreme Court. I'm going to tell you individually that we would make note of that. And I know that we have at least one on the west side. I have John Longacre is here with me. He's the CEO of the Guardian Advocates and intimately knows the Grant County clients. So John, you wanted to maybe come up, make some comments and can help answer that, whether you guys track that in detailed or would know what is in the base of the Grant County, we could certainly do that if that would be a hinging factor. We'll find a way. John, go ahead.
Yeah, of the 7 clients, at this point, none of them had opioid issues. However, one of them was a victim of a young couple who financially exploited our client, an elder person, and they had opiate use besides, unethical and criminal action. But we do have in our state grant, as Linda mentioned, a requirement that we cite the reasons for the guardianship. One of those specific reasons we can select is addiction, whether alcohol or drugs. So we do have it in our tracking. It's just at this point, we have not had that. We do certainly have some mental health clients in Grant County that we currently serve as guardian. We also have, like I say, this one client that I wanted to highlight just to give you an idea of the impact this can have. So this individual, I won't mention names, but I can guarantee that most of you who've lived here, who have worked here in the county would know her because she was a high profile person. She was involved in a lot of activities. She was also highly regarded in her profession. She had some cousins over in Fort Wayne area, and that was it, no one local. Well, long story short, one of her friends called Adult Protective Services, and in turn, we were contacted to help out this lady. So this young couple who apparently ran across paths with her needed some help. And it was a young unmarried couple. And so from getting some financial help or otherwise, they ended up moving into her house. They ended up trashing her house. They ended up having a child and living in the house. They took her Social Security check every month. And long story short, the court was able to grant guardianship. We were able to get them out of there. There's a referral to the prosecutor to pursue these people. As a result, she is now in clean, good conditions. She was originally in assisted living because she had capabilities. But the reason why she was victimized is she did have some dementia coming on. Well, that's progressed, and now, sadly, she's in the nursing home section of the Wesleyan nursing home and rehab here in town. But we can suffice it to say that we were able to protect the remaining assets she had. We put it in a special needs trust so that way she has it protected from creditors. She's able to get Medicaid coverage to pay that $7,000 bill a month bill, and we're able to use that special needs trust money for things that she needs. Because once a person spends down, is on Medicaid, all they can have is $2,000, and of their monthly income, they can only keep $52. So suffice it to say, these were kind of extreme situations. We have some less extreme situations, but basically these are folks that don't have family, and because of that, they're self-neglecting, or they're being neglected, or they're being victimized like this lady. And we step in, we get things set up to where, they're being properly taken care of and cared for, and have the type of life we all would want to have. We've become their family. Just like CASA, we have volunteers that get matched up with this lady and our other clients. And they end up visiting them at least once a month, oftentimes a couple times. And our staff also visits 1 or 2 times. We visit at birthdays, Christmas, other things like that. And again, we do what a family would do if they're going and visiting their loved one in a facility. And that's making sure they got clean clothes on. It's not the same one we saw a week ago, that, they're being taken care of. I could go on, you can imagine, we're very passionate about this. And I echo what Linda says. We certainly appreciate anything that you could suggest or help. I know that's kind of a long answer to your question, but I did want to make kind of a real life example of what we do. So after we get guardianship approval, of course, we have to take over finances. We have reporting to the court on 30, 60, 90, and annual basis. We file an inventory, we file accountings of everything that's done. If they're in a facility, usually the facility is the Social Security payee. If not, then we'll be handling that, and we make reports to the Social Security Administration as well. My background, I've been an elder law attorney almost 30 years, starting next year. And why we did this 4 years ago is because in about 3 months' time, I had 3 individuals. One that was a client, one that was referred to me by a nursing home, and another was a client's daughter. All 3 of them would have ended up locked up in a nursing home with no one to watch what's happening and caring for them and visiting. The other would have ended up in a mental institution. As a result, they all were in assisted living or in an independent apartment. The one lady had a kitty. None of those realities would have happened if we wouldn't have intervened. And so my wife and I said, there ought to be something we can do. We can't, with our law office, handle more than 3 people really at a time, what we were doing at that point. But this program allows us to do that. We match up people 1-to-1. And, I can very well see, just as in Madison and Delaware County and the counties to the west, I mean, we probably have easily a capacity for 30 people, in this county, and we have 7. So this is just the first year, we started in January, so I'm thankful for the great support Judge McVicker has given us and his staff. And the chamber here, they've been wonderful, and there's many other groups that have reached out to us. And I'll leave it there because I know you have a lot of other business to get to.
You indicated that Judge McVicker is kind of your lead. If we have questions, we can meet with him.
Yes, he is the sole judge who has jurisdiction over guardianships, whereas the other judges would have other types of cases that they see in front of them. But he is the one that is the lead judge for our program because he does the guardianships.
All right. Any questions, gentlemen?
No questions. I was heading the same way you were, Mr. Bardsley, with the opioid dollars that would possibly be available, but it doesn't sound like this necessarily fits that mold.
Not at this point. Yeah.
We'll try and keep thinking outside the box.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we are moving on to Barry Grossman, Crossroads Bank. We have a resolution purchase agreement to review. Morning.
Good morning. I'm Barry Grossman. I'm a senior vice president with Crossroads Bank. And this is for the 4 ambulances that you're going to be getting. We're looking to get a resolution passed. We are actually, this financing transaction is being handled through the Indiana Bond Bank, which we are the funding partner of the Indiana Bond Bank for this particular financing. And I've been working with Justin and Kyle. So I believe all the documents have been reviewed and the resolution's been prepared for you, mentioned in the past. As far as if you want some of the terms, I guess you're purchasing 4 ambulances through Care Inc. And the amount that we'd be financing is $1,042,764. The rate would be 4.42%. First payment will be due June 1st of 2024, and be 5 years with 10 semi-annual payments.
First payment due June of 2024.
Right, because it's going to take a while for the ambulances to be manufactured.
So if we don't use some of our money in CCD, we can keep that in the unappropriated area.
It just be part of the cash balance. If you didn't use it in 23, that's it being cash be budgeted in 24.
To utilize for 24. Great. Okay.
So we're funding this into an escrow account, an interest-bearing escrow account to be held at the bank. And So once the ambulance is delivered, then that money will come out of that. But by doing it this way, the rates are gonna be fixed.
Yeah,
That's like the-
you're good to get that fixed, and it's good for the county as the first payment's not till June of 24 as well, from a budgeting standpoint.
Yes. I don't understand all the intricacies, but I know that that's good.
Yeah, I mean, interest rates are definitely going up.
Yes, now you definitely want to lock it in. You want to get this done so you aren't going up.
And you will be earning interest on that money that's sitting there.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Wright, any questions?
I think I'm understanding all that.
Anything, Mr. Burton, that you want to point out or question?
Mr. Grossman, the rate that you're going to be earning on interest, is that specified someplace in here, how that is?
no, it's at the bank's public funds rate, and I mean,
I see, yeah.
it changes, it goes up, it goes
Understand,
down.
okay.
It'll fluctuate with.
Yeah, the decision is not based on that reading, because there's not that much interest to be earned, let's say, dollar one.
Right. I would entertain a motion to approve the exhibit number 2 lease Crossroads Bank.
So moved.
And I'll second via WebEx.
Motion with support. Any discussion?
I do believe we need a number assigned to that.
As a resolution, yes. Resolution number 4 of 2022. No other discussion? I think we're ready for a roll call.
Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
Mr. Bardsley.
Aye. It is covered. Thank you for helping us work through this.
So, after the meeting, if we could get together to sign the documents.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Tom.
Right. Everyone has been very patient. Thank you. We're moving right along. Ryan, you're up next. We've got a couple of applications. See, variance and special exception requests.
Yes. And I've actually got some additional pictures.
Okay. Look at the Smith report.
Yeah, this actually started off as a variance, and then, once I had an opportunity to actually, go out and get pictures and talk to Mr. Smith, he decided to also do a special exception. So the variance and special exception are both for the same property.
Okay.
We'll take, special exception first. Variance will be a little bit of a discussion.
Okay. Let's do the special exception then.
So for the special exception, this is, the address is 10560 South 500 East, Marion, Indiana. Petitioner is asking for, or seeking a special exception from the area-wide zoning ordinance to allow for a farm truck / mechanical repair business in the agricultural zoned district. This is a 4,800 square foot pole barn / garage that was built in 2018 and has since been used by the family to service and repair their own equipment, trucks. The work there is being done by Mr. Smith and his brother-in-law. They're currently doing the work. Things that we noted, land use tables would allow automobile repair, not including body work or paint work without disabled vehicle storage. So that would be allowed by special exception in an agricultural zone. Also noting, as far as the adjacent areas are all farm fields and agricultural zone land. Property is fairly isolated. There is only one home within a quarter of a mile of this property. And again, the 4,800 square foot pole barn / garage was built in 2018, has been
used since that time as a repair shop slash garage for the family to service and repair off of their own equipment. We have had no complaints with that. They are looking, this kind of goes with the variance too. They're actually building on to the south end, the west side, and then looking to get a variance to add on to the north. In discussions with Mr. Smith, he said right now they just do the family operations, but we may look to in the future open that up to other farms. So what we're looking to do here is to allow for that business to be allowed by special exception to the Board of Zoning Appeals with recommendation from the commissioners. If you look at some of the pictures, there is two properties there. They are combining both properties. I gave the aerial so you can see what was surrounding it.
And so you're asking with regard to the special exception that the commissioners provide a favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation to send to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
just a question, Mr. Merlot. Now do we, again, kind of new guy here, do we do a posting on that so the neighbors could do any kind of, letting them know that this is going to be, did we do any newspaper advertising that this is in front of us, or do we do that later?
This will actually go to public hearing with the BZA.
Okay.
Our ordinance requires that before any final decision by the BZA, that the legislative body be asked for their recommendation. So I'm here prior to taking it to the BZA.
Okay.
So we'll have a public hearing in the BZA.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
First thought is that as we're in farming community and we're not in a high traffic area, I don't believe that there's a problem with that expansion. As long as there's no major objection in public hearing, and we can't rule on that. We just, from what we see, again, I'm inclined to do a favorable recommendation at this point, unless you gentlemen see some flaw there that we need to consider.
I would agree with you, Commissioner Bardsmith.
I echo those sentiments.
I think a lot of times our special exceptions are there so that we can take these on a case-by-case basis. Should this be in the middle of agricultural ground with a subdivision right beside it, sort of thing, I think it gives us the opportunity to stop, pause, and take a peek.
I would entertain a motion regarding our application for special exception.
Motion.
So moved.
Mike got started before you. You want to second that favorable?
I'll second that. Second via WebEx.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing not, roll call, please.
Mr. Burke,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
Mr. Bartley.
Aye. So we will do that favorable recommendation, and let's talk about this standard variance.
Okay. The second part of it, as we were talking, they are looking to add onto the south and west. Both of those are allowed by right, and we have issued building permits for those. The addition to the north, this is going to be a 2,125 square foot single story lean-to addition. The variance that we're meeting, this addition is going to be 10 foot off of the northern property line. And the standards require a minimum of 30 foot off of the property line. What I note and try to show in the pictures is on top of the 10-foot, there's an additional 10 foot off of the road right away. So the building will actually be 20 foot off of the road. If that makes sense.
It's 20 feet off our right.
It's right away is 10 foot off the road. You're asking to be 10 foot off of that right. So instead of being 30 foot off of the right of way, they're asking to be 10. But all told, they'll have 20 foot between the building and the edge of the road. With this, and again, I tried to get pictures going both ways. There is a concern. David's here, and I talked with him about it. Highway department is concerned. There is, with the lean-to coming off the north side, it may create a line of sight issue. We went out and measured. We are from the projected building to that intersection about 132 feet. David had mentioned is, although 500 east is not very busy, 1050 south can be busier. And with the dump trucks coming up to that intersection, dump trucks have to set back 15 foot with plows on the front. He's concerned with pulling out there if there'll be enough line of sight. So again, if you go to my pictures, the last three pictures, I'm kind of showing where we measured. We went at 20 foot from the intersection on 500 East. Basically stood up on the back of the truck to try to emulate a dump truck where they'd be sitting, and then took a picture both ways. So you can kind of see what line of sight would be.
Mr. Malat, did Mr. White, was he concerned at all with, as a plow would be plowing snow down that road, that it would hit the lean-to or the building? Did he mention anything about that?
You can ask him yourself.
He is in the room. He's come up to the podium to answer.
Very good. Very good. Just a question.
I believe that's gonna be a factor. My biggest thing is, I'm not worried about as much as the dump truck is seeing as the public. You pull up to County Road 500 East and look to the west. I think once that structure is built up, all you're gonna see is that structure. And then that roadway on 1050 is a 55 mile-an-hour speed limit, so, cars are gonna be running 55 mile-an-hour down that road, and I don't think they're gonna be able to see them till they're right out on traffic. So that's my main concern. If he wants to build to the south of his building, I have no problem with all that, but out by the right of way, I think we're gonna have a factor. If somebody did pull out there and have a bad accident, I think we're gonna be pretty liable on safety concerns that once we've, been presented this stuff.
And then the other question I had is there any fiber or anything that's buried there in that right of way?
Yeah, I believe there is. I mean, it's still on the right of way. I don't think that would be a factor, but I know there is fiber on that roadway. I don't know if it's on the south side or the north side, but I know there's fiber that runs all the way down through there, so. It's kind of bad now when he gets vehicles that he's working on out there now, trying to look around them, because he's got some of them right at the edge of the right of way. And I think once you build that building, there's things sitting inside the building or in front of the building that's really gonna be a safety hazard to look around when you're looking to the west.
And I put in there, as far as the recommendations go, that it would be with, that it would be with conditions, that the grassy area that Mr. White's talking about, right now in the pictures, you can kind of see he's got some of the vehicles up in that grassy area. My thoughts were, part of the conditions for the BZA, if they decided to approve it, would be that nothing could be parked in that grassy area north of the driveway or parking lot.
I think that's a good consideration for the BZA to look at.
And I did, the homeowner is aware of Mr. White's concerns and, so that's one of the things that we talked about. Could we keep everything that looks like everything's off the grass right now already?
I was admonished earlier to think outside the box, so I'm trying to think outside the box right now. 1050 south and 550 east, do we have a four-way stop there?
It's a T.
No,
Oh, sorry.
on east, it's a mile east of 500, excuse me, it's half mile east.
There's a two-way stop, north and southbound stop. At 525, it's a southbound stop. It's a T2.
I'm just wondering if it helps us at all to consider putting in a east-west stop sign there at, just asking.
State law says you can't use a stop sign as a traffic control device. And there's 10 times the amount of traffic on 1050 as there is 500. I mean, and I don't think really by law you can do that.
I'm asking, yes. The other thing is, I think you said 55, I thought all county roads were 50 unless otherwise posted.
Well, I was gonna say, I think they're all 50, but they're still, unless posted, so it's still at least 50.
Any country boy or girl knows how to drive on country roads.
Yeah.
No matter what's posted.
Yeah, right. They'll be doing 50 plus, I guarantee you.
Yeah. All right. Other questions, folks?
I guess there's just wish there's a way you could build something and see what it looks like. I mean, I don't know if it'll be a factor, but I also just wanted to make sure Ryan is aware. My only concern when I went and looked at it was, you know, it might not ever be a situation, but I mean, I'd hate to have him build it and then not be able to see around it and not be safe for people. That's all concern I have, so.
Well, I think we ask the appropriate questions we can, and then as this indicates, it goes to the BZA with our favorable, unfavorable, or no recommendation. They can receive that recommendation, or they can go off on a different path to make a decision. So as we do our due diligence, we'll send the recommendation on so they can do theirs. Gentlemen, do you have a thought on this right now?
I'll speak up. I have concern. If Mr. White has a concern, I have a concern. I really wouldn't want to give it a favorable recommendation. I'm with you, Mr. Bardsley. I think if we send it to the BZA and let them do a little bit further study on it and get their ideas on what they would like to see happen there, I too would be I would be concerned about any kind of a lawsuit that would come from an accident that would happen in that corner because of a lack of vision from that T. So my recommendation for me personally would just be to give it a no recommendation at this point and let the BZA take a look at it and see what they think.
I think that's fair.
Yes, I agree as well.
I would entertain a motion if someone wants to make one.
I'll make that as a motion.
Second,
Motion, Mr. Wright via WebEx. Second, Mr. Burton. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go for a roll call, please.
Mr. Burke,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
Mr. Barsley.
Aye. It is unanimous. We will sign the appropriate paperwork and get that to the BZA.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Our clerk of courts has been patiently waiting.
Hello, hello. I have a request today. Hello, Mr. Wright. Yeah.
Hello, Ms. Harris.
I said hello. I just said hello.
Yes, hello, Ms. Harris. How are you?
Okay.
Good.
What I have is, I'll just do a quick update. It's good to see you, Mr. Burton, as well. We have the night before the election, on Monday night, our teams go, we have the 11 vote centers, and the Republican and Democrat teams together meet to set up their space. When they have completed setting up their area, then they run what we call a zero tape. The next morning, on election morning, the Republican and Democrat team get together, run another zero tape to be certain that there have been no votes cast on each of those machines. Then at the end of the day, the Republican and Democrat teams again run the tally tape, showing how many votes have been cast on each of those machines. Well, the printers that we currently have are they're in good operating order, but they are extremely outdated. And they take anywhere from 12 to 15, 17 minutes to run those tapes. We have anywhere from 4 voting machines to 10 voting machines at our polling locations. So this adds can add another 2.5 hours to just the running of those tapes. And I see Mr. George was here a minute ago, that he and Mr. Green, as well as the media and the party chairs, and especially the candidates, are all anxious to know how that election has the results of that election. What Microvote has available to us are some high-speed printers. They typically, these will tally those votes within a matter of a few seconds. Like maybe less than a minute. They just buzz right off. Those machines typically cost, where was it? I think $750. So a total of the 11 that we would need would be $8,250. Microvote has available to us some that are slightly used, and by that, when I questioned them, they said they've been used in one election, but they're used. So they would offer those to us at $650 per unit, totaling the $7,150. That's saving us $1,100. They also could get those to us, so there would be no shipping. And even though they're a used unit, they would have the 12-month warranty. So I am requesting that, because in the clerk's budget, I don't have the $7,150. So I was wondering or hoping that as the commissioners kind of partner with the clerk's office with the elections, if the commissioners would be interested in paying for these units, if that is a possibility.
Question is what kind of resources we have right now, but I will totally agree with the clerk. I think Mr. Rohrbach as well, when he was a precinct committeeman, we're using the same printers that he was using, and I've used them for a long time too. So I think that it would be to our advantage to be able to find the money to do this. Again, I'm not sure, well, do we have anything left in, I think we moved stuff out of equipment to CCD, didn't we?
There will be a transfer proposal going in front of the council, this Wednesday.
Yeah.
To transfer from the CCD vehicles over into the equipment fund.
Does that help to cover this or?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, it would cover it.
so that evidently we've already pre-thought this a little bit then.
We came into an agreement that, we would not purchase
Any more vehicles.
any more vehicles, so that would allow us to transfer, I believe, 25,000 over.
So I think we found it.
Bless your heart, Justin.
All right. What we would need to do then, gentlemen, in anticipation of the approval of that transfer, we would need to make a motion to purchase the high-speed printers out of equipment line item in the Hume Capital Development Fund.
Motion to approve that request.
With that caveat that we get
Yes.
the transfer.
Yeah, second, via WebEx.
All right, we have motion with support and any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
and Mr. Bartley.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk Wednesday night and see what the council says.
Sounds fair. Thank you.
All righty. Jim, we have a union agreement you have up next.
Yeah, the council and the sheriff's department, the union representing the sheriff's department employees, and the sheriff have agreed to the amendment to their contract, which includes salary changes for 2023. And at this point, the commissioners are the only body that has not approved that. So we need to have the commissioners to give their approval. And if that is done, Mr. Barnes, we need you to sign the agreement. This that covers 2023, it'd have to be reopened again for 2024.
Okay. And actually, our signature on this is pretty much standard. We haven't negotiated any of the policies or any things that we have direct authority over, so we're just verifying what these gentlemen have already done. So I think we need a motion to approve the first amended agreement with the union and sheriff's department and council as presented, authorizing the president to sign for the board of commissioners.
The motion to approve.
And I'll second that via WebEx.
Right, we have a motion with support, and again, we are just affirming what the others have already agreed to. We have no policy changes or recommendations for this particular contract. So we would be, again, doing anything on the next contract for later in 23 is when they'll probably open up negotiations.
Yeah, they would start, I'd say, somewhere in the summer of 23 for 2024.
Right?
You have the original.
I have it right here, one for signatures right here.
Any other discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Burton,
Aye.
Mr. Wright,
I via WebEx.
and Mr. Bartley.
Aye. It is carried unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mark, I have that copy here. I'll give it to you in a minute.
All righty. Steve, do you have any other new business that you need to introduce?
Don't believe so. Thank you.
All right. And Mike, any other new business you need to introduce today?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right, we will move to public comment. you would like to address the Board of Commissioners, we invite you to step up to the podium, present your name, your address, and concerns or comments.
Robert Sparks, and I live at 966 North 1000 East. I thank you guys for the privilege to come here and make my comments. I got some pictures here of what I got is I have a problem with one individual, Troy Roush, is continuously tearing up the edge of the road. There's what I have done this summer. I put about 10 tons of dirt down and leveled it up so I can mow the yard. Already this fall, he done this yesterday. And I got the sheriff out there. And for me, it is nothing more than plain harassment because he does it year after year after year. And I call the sheriff out there and they talk to him and then he does it again. It needs to be stopped. And I've asked for the road to be widened out there. And I think this gentleman sitting here said this spring or earlier this year, I don't remember what, that maybe was January, February, I was in there. And somebody, I don't remember who it was, said that you would look into seeing about getting the road widened out there. Because there's from 125 north all the way to State Road 18 needs to be widened. It is not wide enough for two vehicles to meet. You can take two of your county trucks and get them going the opposite direction and one or both of them is going to be off in the grass. I mean, it's that simple. And the combine that goes down through there that does that takes up the whole road. And then when he comes around the corner, he does it deliberately. All right. You say, well, the road's not wide enough there. Well, the road's not any wider as you go on down the road. Why isn't the neighbor's yard tore up like mine? See what I'm saying? I mean, it's deliberate and it needs to stop. I don't need to be out there every year leveling the yard up so I can mow it.
Mr. Rouse, what's the address there again at this?
No, I'm Mr. Sparks.
I'm sorry. Is Mr. Rouse is the problem?
Yes. 966 North 1000 East.
966 North, 1000 East.
I'd really appreciate it if they'd widen the road. They widened the road south of State Road 18 on 1000. And the farmers has already got it tore up where they widened it because they parked semis on the side of the road. And then when they left with their load of soybeans, I believe, it just peeled the road right up.
Do you want us to keep these in
Yes.
for evidence purpose? Yes. Thank you.
But I appreciate that. It's like I tell the sheriff, I says, this is harassment. I said, this is continuous. It's ongoing. It doesn't stop. And then there was probably 10 tons of dirt there that I had to put out there to get the ruts filled up. Because it's over 100 feet on the one side and probably 70 feet down the other side on 1000 where it makes the bend on 100 there. So I thank you for your time and appreciate that you did.
We will, again, work with, he's already left the room, but we'll work with the highway department and see what.
Well, he made me come out and move my rocks because I had the rocks out there to keep them out of the yard, which that worked. Well, then now there's nothing there to stop them. I mean, and their equipment is no bigger going down the road than anybody else's. Now, when they get in the field, that might be a different situation, but he's the only one that, all right, if you come out in the yard that far, that's not wide enough for a car to get down through there, is it? I don't know of any cars that's 30 inches wide. That's about how wide those combine tires are.
Yeah.
And I even suggested to the deputy this spring when they was out there, I said, well, how about I get my tractor and go down there and drive in their yard? He says, well, you can't do that. He said, I'd consider that to be criminal. I said, excuse me? I said, you mean to tell me as many times as I've had you people out here that this isn't criminal? Yeah, well, that's a one-way street now, isn't it? And I don't live on a one-way street out there. What's good for one's good for everybody.
Yeah.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I just would talk to Mrs. Harris. And I'm going to say this here because I don't want to say something Wednesday night and think I'm going against what the commissioners do. I suggested to her she buy new for only $1,000 more. Why inherit somebody else's potential problem?
That's fair.
And I thought, she said, well, I've already asked her. I said, well, come Wednesday night and ask her. I don't know if we can do that. I don't know how all that's gonna work, but that was just she's so frugal. She does a great job. And I know where she was headed. Sometimes it's better to spend and get a new rather than, I don't know what those machines are and she didn't either, but
I wouldn't disagree with
it's
that.
only $1,000 more. I'd say get the.
However, our attorney decides we need to do that, if
Yeah,
you guys,
If it can be done Wednesday night, I'm gonna talk about it there, but I didn't want you guys to think I was going against what you.
no, I say, you're piling on and making it good. That's good.
I would,
I'm the last one that usually spends.
I'm assuming right now, I can't recall how it is, but there's a request to the council probably for a transfer. And I'm not sure how much she requested a transfer offhand, but if the transfer that they approve accommodates the extra spending, that's up to you guys to approve that.
It would accommodate it.
It was fun. Yeah.
So I mean, just
Okay,
a minute.
so we're okay. I don't think so. Okay.
Thank you.
Just a clarification. I'm not really sure if the new printers can be delivered in the time that she needs those new ones. I was kind of listening to her speak there. It sounds like there would be no shipping cost, as well as they can get them in time. My concern, Mr. Rohrbach, that's the only, and I totally agree with you, what you're saying, but my concern would be, can we get them in time? That would be just a point of clarification.
I agree. We need them this year. We don't need to wait 2.5 hours.
All right. Anyone else? Thank you for being with us today, and we will declare ourselves in recess. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Only pickleball.
Thank you. I think we're good this afternoon. Yeah. A couple of interviewees. That would be, that's actually,